All right, guys, this is Ashley Williams with Legacy Farms Coffee, and I'm hoping that everybody can hear. I'm working with a new mixing board tonight, and so I am not sure if everything's going out like it's supposed to, but we'll know soon enough. I'll look over a couple of things, but we have Legacy Farms Coffee, and during the week I've picked up a few different podcasts. I guess they're providers, or whatever, like Podbean, Pandora. We got on Shopify. You can go to Amazon, Google Podcast. It's quite a few different things. We're waiting for the reply back from iTunes to get on to iTunes. We've applied there. We'll see what happens. But we're hoping that you guys will spread this around with the home roasters, anybody in the roasting community, but mainly the home roasters helped me out a lot when I got started, where some of the big guys wouldn't answer a lot of questions because everybody has their own, mixes and blends and things like that. And a lot of them are busy guys. And I got so much help when I was trying to learn to roast from the little guys. And so I think I started out with the skillet the very first time. Then I moved over to like the popcorn popper that just blows the hot air out. Eventually, I bought a Fresh Roast 700, and one of my customers gave me a Bmore 1600. And from there, I went to when I made the big leap to get a sample roaster, a full blown sample roaster, I got the Hucky 500, which it had like a year-long learning curve for me. I haven't been to formal roasting schools. I did a roasting school or two in Honduras, and then I went to Mill City and did their basic school. It's just one day. But excuse me, I haven't had near enough coffee today. But I got so much help when I went to some of the places, and Jeff over at he's got fresh one of the home roasting things, Facebook pages. I mean, a lot of these guys help you out. And so it's made a big difference for me. So I want to start the podcast out this year with trying to help out and connect as many of you guys, give you a little bit better communication with people. We all Facebook. I know so many people from Facebook, but never get to put a face to it. And so the last couple of weeks, a couple of months that I've been doing this, I'm going to do it every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Next Wednesday, I'll still be here in the States. The Wednesday after that, I'll do a couple of podcasts. I'll do 4 or 5 or 6 podcasts while I'm in Honduras. So anybody that wants to do some kind of questions about the farm, it'll be on the back porch. I'm still having some lighting issues there, but for the best of my ability, it'll be on the back porch again. You can see some of the back porch videos where on YouTube, where we just sit and talk to people or talk about what's going on with coffee. But a couple of things today. There was a few questions. A lot of people think that we're a lot bigger company than what we are. This year, the numbers are going to be something like 23,000 pounds of coffee that we produce. As far as coffee farming goes, that's not an incredible amount of money. I think Amy is on, and I just got a notice saying that you need to connect your mic cam before you can come on. So if you're trying to use something, just unplug everything and maybe use your laptop mic and all that's built in. But as soon as you can get some voice on there, it's not letting me click you in. But a lot of the questions have been making that jump from when I went from the basic, home roasting into more of a commercial. For me, I actually I bought the big roaster. Like my roaster will do 30 pounds. So I guess it's a 12, 13, 14K roaster, something like that. I bought that before I bought my sample roasters. Pretty close. I bought the 700 after that. And then a year later, I got the Huckies. But one of the things that helped me was we're big fans of a lot of the Dave Ramsey stuff. And we did we just traded. The year I had more coffee than customers, we went in and traded. And so I'd probably say, not counting the roaster that's here, we traded for probably 80% of the equipment that's in the shop. We traded roasted coffee, mostly green coffee, but it's just been, it was a slow process. A couple of years ago, I bought, the Wayfill machines before we had any use for them. They just sat on the shelf for a year or so before we ever used them. But just waiting for that deal and buying good quality stuff. I started out with I think it's a GH1 bun, and I ground everything in that. And at the time, I didn't do decaf, so it didn't really matter. But I started out with one, and now there's six over there. I can't pronounce it. Three of them are bun, and three of them are that German Malk or something. But it's got a German name. I've got two of the GH2s, and I've got a Guatemalan 43. But again, just traded for it. Not getting too big too fast helped us a lot. But I put my cart in front of the horse for sure. But I did it because I wanted to be ready for that time when I was able to go, to some bigger customers and things like that. Because at first, all we did was sell green coffee. And I knew there wasn't enough profit in that to keep the farm going, especially those first years. It takes 4 years to get a coffee plant into production. So those first 2 or 3 years, we had hardly anything. The first year, we produced 800 pounds of coffee. And so, that was just a few trees that were just already on the farm. So it was pretty much 3 years before we had enough coffee. And so that first year, we shipped 88 bags. The second year, we had 108 bags. And then we went up from there to like 180 and then 203. Then we had a couple of hurricanes, so we were 160 and then 160. And this year, we're looking at 156. And so, there's a big up and down in the farm. The farm will never make a profit. So we're going to have to do roasted coffee in order to keep the farm going, keep the projects going. There's so much need for the bank that we have down there and those things. But, we just got our ducks in a row first. And then when I went to Mill City one day, they ordered some coffee. I just cold called them and Steve over at Mill City. And he said he just walked out of a meeting and he said they wanted to do a direct trade relationship with somebody. And so, I just called him right then. I was standing on my patio in Honduras, the drying patio, and he talked to me for probably an hour. And right off the bat, when he found out we grew one variety of coffee and processed it 3 different ways, he ordered 3 bags of each, and then he wanted a bag of defects. He wanted to be able to see what comes out of the coffee, and he wanted to be able to teach that in his school. And so we delivered that coffee, and he invited us to come in. And a lot of the coffee roasters they sell are the smaller entry level coffee roasters. And so we, it just worked out perfectly. I didn't know that he was going to do it, but he ended up putting up some kind of sign and saying that they got their coffee from us, and for a year or two they used that coffee in their schools so that they could put the same variety processed 3 ways from the same plant on the same farm, and let people roast it and see what those differences were. And we did a cupping when I went back later on and went to a school with my son. But then the next thing I know, he's handing out our phone number, and people are ordering 5, 10, 15 pounds. So we had to get ready pretty quick and start selling green coffee on the smaller scales. Because I've got a truck, we deliver the big stuff. But those little guys were wanting 6 pounds, 8 pounds. And, we were just shipping out like crazy that first year. And we got on some of the sites. We still have to be careful about advertising. But the Be More site, the Fresh Rose site, we got on those sites. And you guys that are listening to me now, y'all are the ones that, got us going and kept us going. So it was amazing to watch how much coffee we could sell 6 pounds at a time. And I got a little bit better price for the smaller things. And I've got time when I'm in the States. There's not a whole lot going on. So it's, I've got the time to pack up a whole bunch of, today I did a 10 pound and a 21 pound box of green. Everything else was roasted. But now we're, last couple of years, we've been morphing into that roasted side. we picked up a fundraiser, and we talked to the school, and then they decided not to go with us, and they went with the other company again. And the lady talked to us, and she said they did 237 pounds, and so I really wanted to get the account, uh, and I'd made them a good price on it. And the next year they called us, and they were going to go with us, and I think that first year we sold 400, but we gave them a better deal than the other. So with that added amount of coffee, they made more than double the money they made the year before. And then last year, they sold 777 pounds of roasted coffee and over like 3,500 K cups. That's how many K cups it was. They sell them a dozen at a time. But so that was for us was just a crazy big order. And it took me, a day and a half just to roast it. And then from there, it was, grinding, packing, trying to get it organized, trying to make sure we had enough K cups here. Uh, and then now we're doing probably 5 or 6 different fundraisers, every year. And they've gotten bigger. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. The downside was that I noticed that we didn't have a lot of door sales for the next couple of weeks. And it was because everybody here had bought from their grandkids, at school. And so there was very few people needing coffee. But it always sort of ebbs and flows and works its way out the way it's supposed to. But the key thing would be really researching before you make that step to go. Don't go big. Don't go customize bags and all those things. We've been in it a few years, and we're just now looking at customized bags. I bought a thing from Wichita Stamp and Rubber here in Wichita, Kansas. It was $35 stamp that's got our logo on it. So I sent them my PDF. They made me a stamp. Now I've got 2 of them. Now I actually stamp the bag, and it has all the varieties of coffee. My FDA stamp on the back is the same thing. You have to mark whether it's, where it's made, whether it's ground, whole bean. And so I've got all those numbers. So I just circle number 6 grind, what size the bag is, and I just stamp them all. And I use those brown craft bags, and it makes everything look pretty good. One of the things I told my wife I was doing because it was business, but bought a lot of the different coffee methods. They call them methods in Honduras, but the French press, the V60, the Clever by Bonavita, all those basic methods. And so when we did the cupping, which is where you take 12 grams of coffee, 200 milliliters of water, you let it steep, you break the crust, you smell it, you score it, and then you like slurp it. After we do that formal cupping, then I start breaking it down on that table. And so that's helped us quite a bit by knowing which coffee sort of goes which direction. The Bourbons work better one way, and the Perinamas work better another. And so when I'm doing the cold brew, normally I'm going to either do a full natural or the canal wash. Those are 2 I like best in a cold brew. It's just so many different things. A full espresso, a regular espresso, I use the full natural. And so I learned those things by just trying everything. And then the blends, I was easy on. I didn't do a whole lot of blends. We've got Eli Mountain blend, and I've got one that's called the espresso blend. Those are the only 2 blends we do. The rest of it is just straight single origin coffees. But a lot of the roasters that buy from us blend it, with 2 or 3 blends. To me, that's just very, very complicated. My customers don't seem to care. They really like the Eli Mountain blend. That's become our most popular coffee. But keeping it simple, you're going to have to get some money together. Have some money together, because the only way you're going to buy bags competitively is to go through. There's a couple we use Save On bags, and then there's another one I can't think of. Anybody that wants to know can PM me, and I'll give them whatever information where we buy stuff from. But so much of the basic stuff like coffee filters and day-to-day stuff, just find it on Amazon. Try to save the seller and order from the same guys over and over again. But the bags, we usually buy them 1,000 at a time. That seems to be when the price starts going down. But our 12 and 16 ounce bags, we just don't have enough cash flow to buy them 10,000 bags at a time. So we'll buy, 1,000, 1,500 at a time. And then we have the 5-pound bag, We have 8-ounce bags, and then we have a 4-ounce sample bag. Then we've got a 2-ounce bag that we use for our tea. And so it's just been difficult, but that's life. It's difficult, but it was difficult figured out, what size bags the customers wanted in our area. And once we did, we just started ordering the same thing over and over again. And I still screw up orders. I ordered some kind of biodegradable bag the other day, which is great for the environment, but it's a nightmare to seal because it melts inside the sealer. And so, you have to do that special. So it takes a whole lot longer to do it. And I have 1,000 of them. So there's nothing I can do with them now. I talked to a guy today, and I want to have some time and talk to him a little more in depth. He made that jump, and he's been selling commercially for a couple of years, but they're thinking about shutting down because the profit wasn't what he thought it was. But know your math. Know that it takes, and I use easy numbers when I figure things. So roughly speaking, it takes 6 pounds of green coffee to come out with 5 pounds of roasted. That's not an exact, but just as an easy number to figure in your head. So if you're paying $5, you got $36 and 5 pounds of roasted coffee, and 75 cents a bag. Uh, the stamps, ink, all that you can either do on your printer pretty cheap. Uh, it's just easy enough to do some of that basic math and then figure out how much you're going to spend on marketing. And I've never had any luck with Facebook marketing or Instagram marketing. We just survive by word of mouth. And I've been on all the coffee websites, coffee. And it seems like they're more into which creamers that they're using. So those aren't very good avenues for specialty grade coffee. But get a niche. Most of our coffee, green coffee buyers, they're selling us. They're selling Legacy Farms. We have a good coffee. We have some great coffees, but we have a great story, and we're helping people there. We're making an impact on the community. We started a public library. There's, school projects. There's a church. So there's a lot of good things that we've done that would help you market that coffee. And people like to help other people, and that's what we're trying to do down there. We're starting a dental thing. We had our first dental clinic about a month ago, and we're going to have another one again here in probably another month. And we're trying to get funding and get the money put back to have it where it's every other week, be open one day. That's my big goal. But if you can find a decent grinder, you're not going to make a living off of a burr grinder from Walmart. They have their place, but you can look on some of the websites. There's a Facebook page that's great, and constantly I see the GH2 bun grinders, and just GH2s in general are good grinders. But you're going to pay $300 or $400 or $500, $600 for that bun, because I think it's like $1,100 new, and they're just almost indestructible. They're just good, solid grinders, and I think they do a well enough job. Like I said, I've got 3 of those grinders here. I just happened to switch to the German ones because that was the deal that was available when I had green coffee, and they were upgrading to like Deeding or something, like a $5,000 grinder. So I got these for some green coffee. A lot of green coffee. But I had green coffee, and right now it's just sitting there looking at me, and I don't have to feed it, but it's not paying me anything until I do something with it. So I traded and finagled, and I love the Wayfill machines. Today I did 100 3-ounce sample bags, and about when I was on bag 75, I looked over at Eli and I'm like, why aren't we using those Wayfill machines to do this? And I've got a conveyor belt sealer, and it would have made light work out of that. But I was listening to a podcast and wasn't paying attention, and I was just started bagging coffee. And so, it occupied my time, kept me out of trouble. But finding out your regulations of what your area is. I have stroopwafels. I love stroopwafels. I got them on an airplane one time, and I found out where to get them at eBay for like 70 cents a piece. So I have a half a stroopwafel every day, and today's that day. But we had to find out the hard way on some things. I'll make it a short story, but we shipped our big roaster from Honduras to here in Kansas. And the trucking company that shall remain nameless dropped it off the dock. Well, the regulations in Honduras, it had to be crated to be shipped. So the guy crated it. He put a little door on the side of the crate that all my paperwork went in. It was pretty cool. But when they dropped it off the dock, all that box just came to pieces. So they just picked it up, threw it away, and they shrink wrapped the machine. And so what happened was, uh, once it got to the States and started moving down the line, uh, it just stopped, and they put it in a corner one day, and it just stayed there for a couple months. Finally, I tracked it down, found the thing, got it here to Kansas, or got it here to my place. It was in Chicago, and we had pulled it into our own garage and got her unloaded and hooked up. The only way to really test a roaster is to roast. And so when you roast 30 pounds at a time, you roast a couple roasts. And so I had 120 pounds of roasted coffee, started selling it. And I sold it to somebody that was doing it was a disability center. And so I sold it to him, I think I sold it to him for $5 a pound roasted because I needed to dump the coffee. I didn't have any customers and I wanted somebody to buy it before it went bad. And so that's what we did. Within 2 days, health department shows up. Well, unbeknownst to me, in me selling them 100 pounds of, low priced coffee, they lost the deal that they had to sell them coffee because we made a deal. I was going to keep selling them coffee at a little bit different price, or a lot of bit different price, but that would get them started. And that was a big shot in the arm for them. So the health department shows up and asks what we're doing. And I told them the same story I just told you. There's a thing called a cottage law. And cottage law is not in all 50 states. But cottage law says that if you want to sell, your wife wants to bake cookies or you want to bake cookies, you can sell them at the farmer's market, you can sell them to friends, but you can't go dragging a commercial or an industrial oven into the house and start selling online and all, and to cookie stores and bakeries and things like that. That's going to require health department and all that stuff. So the guy said exactly what he'd been doing. I said, the machine was beat up. I hooked it up. I roasted, and now I have to dump this coffee. Because while we were talking, my wife came in and sold a pound of coffee right in front of him. And so he said, that's the only time you've done it. And I said, yeah, we roasted 120, more or less, And he said, well, their rule of thumb was about 300 or 400 pounds was the max that you could do at farmers markets and sell it out of your garage. And so that's exactly what we're doing. We're sitting in a garage now. And so he said, technically you haven't broken any laws, but you're soon to be breaking laws. And he said, as long as you're not selling online. And I said, well, I am selling online. And he said, well, you have to have an FDA license. But because I was an exporter, then I had my FDA license. So he said, well, then you're okay there. So he just went to walking around the building and said, if you wanted to roast here, then, I can make you up just on my piece of paper. I can tell you what you'd have to change before you call us for an inspection. He did. I looked it over, and it wasn't that big a deal. We spent $5,800, and we didn't do it all in one day. That's the total I've spent, and I ended up sheetrocking it. There was a block building. I built 2x4 walls, framed it up, and we put insulation. Then we sheetrocked it. So it's $5,800. It's looking pretty nice. And he came back and inspected it, and we've had just one inspection over the last 3 years. Both times we were 100% compliant, and it was easy enough to do. So you hear the bad stories about the health department. They're all not that way for certain, but it was easy enough for us to get started. We just have to buy, sometimes they're $1,000 for that big triple sink and hand washing sink, mop washing sink, and those things. Our building is 24 by 30, something like that. So it's not huge. It was the old detached car garage that's been here for 70 years. And so it was easy enough to do that, but you could do the same thing out of your garage. But they looked at my grinders. They looked at, how we were storing things and things like that. And we had to move one electric outlet was too close to the sink and just basic stuff. But before he got here the second time, I'd wired the building and, everything around the water was GFI and those things. So it wasn't this huge undertaking to get all this done. So I dodged a bullet there. But having your ducks in a row by, going ahead and finding out what it's going to cost for bags, how much money you're going to start out with, hopefully not borrowing a whole lot of money. But then once you do that and getting your ducks in a row where you can sell to everybody. I talked to a guy today and he said that I suggested him doing fundraisers because it's not super high profit, but it moves a bulk of coffee. So that would let you buy a bulk of bags and a bulk of, this, that, and the other. And so, I don't make near as much when I sell on the fundraisers, but I'll get an order in one day and for 770 bags. And if I'm just selling it for 10 bucks a pound, that's $7,700 that rolls through the door in and out within 8 days. So I roasted it, packed, let it degas and packed it and got it out of here in 8 days with just me and my wife, and the boys help some too. But start those farmers markets are super important. Your church, tell people, go to Vista Prints and get you a bunch of cheap cards made. Get you a set of signs for your door. I think they were $45 for a pair of magnetic signs. Just there's a lot of easy advertising you can do, but go places, get on the Facebook pages, be talking to people constantly. And you can, make that jump. You're going to have some serious money when it comes time to buy the roaster. The roaster and your grinders are going to be two of your biggest investments because those things are that Guatemalan 43 was like $3,800 for that grinder. But then the GH2s were, there's something like 3,000, 2,000, somewhere in there, brand new. And so you're still looking at, $700, $800 to $1,000 to buy a good one used because people know what they're worth and they're not going to sell them too cheap. The buns, I was paying $200, $300, $400 for them. And some of them were at the end of their life. And, so if they're a little bit rougher, then, you might have to rebuild the burrs and stuff, but they're easy to work on, easy to get parts for. And so they're just good investments all around. But I do things on the cheap. And those 770 bags I stamped every one of them. And there's 2 stamps and a sticker that goes on every single bag. But it's time consuming and it's working 16, 17 hours a day. But it is definitely possible. And, and you might think about getting the second fresh roast or the second Be More. I know Ben, who will be listening to this later on, I just gave him, somebody gave me a Be More, and so I gave it to him the other day. So now he's got 2 Be Mores, and I think he bought the 800 the other day, fresh roast. And so, I mean, he'll be making that jump, and whatever we can do to help you guys, we sure will. And there are plenty of questions that I can't think of, but those were the main ones were what I roasted on and where I got started from. My big roaster, we actually had built by a machine shop in Honduras. So it doesn't have a name. When they brought it to me, they put like 65 pounds of coffee in it and roasted it. 65 or 75. It was an incredible amount of coffee. It took an hour and 5 minutes to roast. My sweet spot's 25 pounds. I can do 25 pounds in anywhere from 12 to 13 or 14 minutes, according to whether it's a pea berry or a dark roast. If there's anything you can look up online as far as how to roast, I am very undereducated on roasting because I pretty much only roast Honduran coffee. So, find out, some different coffees. Don't go with the high end fancy coffees right off the bat. It's the hardest coffee I roast is my full natural Peabody. And so it took me a long time before I got it to where I enjoyed drinking it. And so it takes a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error. And so your time with that home roaster is that best time to do your trial and error. And so it'll make all the difference in the world if you spend as much time as possible, just doing those small machines and writing down notes, keeping that profile, drop temperatures and things like that. And I know some of this stuff you can't do with the fresh roast or the Be More, but they're very good machines. And every machine has its place. And you can't do commercial coffee roasting with a bank of 10 Be Mores. They're not commercial roasters, they're home roasters. But I know a lot of people wear them out, and apparently they are very good quality machines because they just tend to go and go. And I guess it's Joe Cove. I think that's right over at Be More. I mean, he stocks the parts. He's got everything you need. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. But this is just a really good machine, and it was probably really over designed for the home, and so it's able to keep plugging along when you're doing that kind of roasting with it. But I started with popcorn popper, went to the 700, the 1600, and then now I use the Hucky 500T. I have one of those here in Kansas, and I have one I'm on the farm. But it was a long learning curve, but it more simulates what I'm going to be roasting on this big drum roaster. So I learned real quick that the Fresh Roast 700, it's great. We use it, and it's a good fast roaster. It's easy cleanup. Doesn't have any problems. There's nothing wrong with it. Where the Hucky does, the Hucky gets beans stuck in the tube. It has some problems, but it's going to be hard for me to develop a roast profile with my little tiny air roaster for my big giant drum roaster. And so, do apples to apples. So if you're wanting to get a drum roaster, find you some kind of a drum roaster like the Be More or that Aloe Bullet. No, the Gin Cafe. There's a lot of ones that are more suited. But if you're thinking about getting the Artisan 3 or the X, whatever, those machines, you'd probably be more suited to get a good fresh roast and get the extension and all that. And so then you're air roasting with your samples and air roasting with your big ones. I'm not a master roaster, so I don't tell anybody how to roast their coffee. I give very little advice on how to roast my coffee. But as far as how to get started in that business, if you can market yourself and market your coffee, you've got it made. That's where I struggle with is marketing. I don't like well, I guess I like marketing. I don't like my results. I don't have that many followers, and I'm having trouble growing those followers. So that's something that I struggle with, and I work on every day. But if you guys have any more questions, just send me a PM. This is going to be aired on YouTube tonight. It'll eventually be on, all the different major podcasts and stuff in audio. But if you want to watch the video as well, then you can stay in for, you could hit one of the YouTube or Google. I think both will give you the video side of it. But if you look in that background, you see my purified water there on the big blue thing. I mainly use kettles with the gas because when we're doing roasting in the Honduras, we're doing cuppings in Honduras. We need a lot of water fast, and I can boil it with gas faster than my kettles can keep up. But I've got a Barraza Virtuoso is what you're looking at there. And then in the house, I've got the Encore, and then we use a Bun GH2 for the majority of the grinding for the cupping and stuff like that. But we've got French press, we've got V60, we've got the a couple of the mocha pots, that aerial press. I don't know. We've got so many different little methods, and we just play with them. But getting good scales, we have I like the Hario scales pretty well. But my favorite scale is it should be on that. I'm not sure if I can say it, but I paid like $12 for it on eBay, and I like it because it's backlit, where the Hario $50-$60 Hario is not. And so you don't need super expensive scales until you start selling commercially. Then you're going to have a legal for trade scale, and the ones I have are the CAS. And I don't know what the other were, but they're like $300. They're going to be sort of expensive, but you don't want to get caught without it, because if you're selling 16 ounces of coffee, you need to make sure that it's 16 ounces of coffee, or 12 or 8, whatever you circle in the bag. You need to make sure it's right. And that's the key to a lot of things. You're stepping your game up to the next level. Anything we can help you guys with, you let us know. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast a little bit early, but let me know how it can help, and let me know anything that you guys would like to talk about. I'll go ahead and schedule the broadcast for next week. But the one I do on the farm, I'd like to have as many people on there as that will fit in the screen. And we'll, if nothing else, got too many people, we'll give everybody 10 minutes on the screen, and I like meeting you guys face to face. That's the best we could do right now. But on the 100, when we're going to do 6 podcasts in a 12-day span in Honduras, and a lot of them will be recorded, but we want to try to address, any kinds of questions and concerns you all have, and and how we can maybe get some of you guys to visit the farm. We have an apartment. I'd love to have you there. But we are YouTube. We are Legacy Farms Coffee 200. Instagram, we are Legacy Farms Coffee 2010. Facebook, we're Legacy Farms Coffee. We are Legacy Farms Coffee Podcasts on all the podcast sites. So you guys, please look up some of our old ones. You'll get to meet some of our workers. My 12-year-old son does some of the interviews. We have a great time. It's a great father and son thing to do. But let me know how we can help. And thanks for listening. Y'all have a good night.